Ladies and gentlemen, lend me your ears and your eyes. Diva Divine Light, live from Brooklyn, New York.
No delaying for what you saying, yo. Silly with my 9 milli with the dilly, yo. When I be on the mic, yes, I do my duty, yo. While up in the club, I be while in the studio. You don't wanna vibe, nigga, really and truly, yo. My main thug, nigga named Moody, yo. He moody, yo. Like a nigga that'll slap me with the toolie, yo. Bitch, nigga scared to death, act fruity, yo. Fuck that, look at shorty, she a little cutie, yo. The way you shake it, make me wanna get all in the booty, yo. With no delaying for what you saying, yo.
Diva Divine Light.
Really my heart to me. Fuck me, see what you got for me. Put more than years with my eyes to see. Still $1 in the place to be. If you really my heart to me. Fuck me, see what you got for me. Put more than years with my eyes to see. Still $1 in the place to be. If you.
You're watching Diva, the Divine Light. A fun-loving, caring, passionate person who talks about sex, celebrity, and real-life issues, and even abuse. So hit that like button and make sure you share the show.
Really my heart to me. Fuck me, see what you got for me. Put more than years with my eyes to see. Still $1 in the place to be. If you really my heart to me. Fuck me, see what you got for me. Put more than years with my eyes to see. Still $1 in the place to be. If you really my heart to me. Fuck me, see what you got for me. Put more than years with my eyes to see. Still $1 in the place to be. If you really my heart to me. Fuck me, see what you got for me. Put more than years with my eyes to see. Still $1 in the place to be. If you.
Here comes the pitch, and it comes in wide. Another combo.
Yo, 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 yo. Good morning, everyone. Well, Bojo dropped it tonight. She dropped it tonight. She got her little extension. She dropped it tonight. Hello, 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 Flawless. Hi, Noonie. Hi, Eva. What's up, my ladies? Yes, she dropped it. She dropped it tonight, guys. She sure did. Let me hold on. I'm gonna share my screen with y'all. Just give me a second. Okay. All right, guys. So, Bonjean put in her objection, because that's what we were waiting for, to Robert Kelly's pre-sentence report. Hello, Miss Rogers. How are you, Mama? Hey, honey. What's up, Mama? What's up, babies? What's up, my ladies? Mama Rogers, let me give you a wrench. I know you got like 1 million pages. I'm going to add you. So you're protected over here. So if you need to block somebody, you could block somebody. Okay, Mama? You already know. So, Defendant Robert Kelly's objections. Oh, another thing, guys. Microphone check. Everything good? I sound good. I sound clear. I'm not breaking up. There's no muffling, no feedback. Let me know what's going on, guys. How do I sound? Give me that thumbs up, guys. Let me know that I sound good. And then I will continue. Okay. Thank you, Eva. All right. Defendant Robert Kelly's objections to the pre-sentence report. Defendant Robert S. Kelly, by and through his counsel, Jennifer Bonjean of the Bonjean Law Group, lodges the following objections to the pre-sentence report. PSR, pursuant to Federal Rule Criminal Procedure 32F. Introduction. After a jury trial, defendant was convicted of racketeering and 8 free-standing Mann Act violations that are duplicative to charge racketeering acts. The charges stem from the allegations of 5 separate women: Stephanie, Jane, Geronda, Sonia, and Faith. Defendant has filed an extensive motion for a judgment of acquittal pursuant to Federal R Criminal P29, a motion for a new trial, and supplemental motion for a new trial pursuant to Federal Rule Criminal P33. Defendant reserves the right to file a sentencing memorandum prior to his sentencing hearing. Okay. Objections to pre-sentence report. Generally, defendant objects to probation's narrative set forth in the offense portion of the report for the reasons set forth in defendant's Rule 29 motion. Separately, defendant makes the following objections. Okay, so, all right. Part A, the offense. The offense. Charges and convictions. Paragraph 11. Defendant objects to the government's assertion that it could prove by a preponderance of the evidence that the defendant's commission of racketeering acts 3 and 4, the jury returned a verdict of not guilty on those racketeering acts, evincing that it did not believe testimony from Sonia. There is no reason to believe that the jury would have credited Sonia's testimony under the lesser standard of proof. The offense conduct, paragraph 15. Defendant objects to the use of the enterprise member to describe an employee who ran errands such as picking up defendant's prescriptions. Paragraph 16 through 17. Defendant objects to the PSR's conclusion that an enterprise existed as set forth in detail in defendant's Rule 29 motion. The government failed to prove the existence of a group of individuals associated in fact for the common purpose of carrying out a fraudulent or illegal scheme. None of the so-called enterprise members identified in the PSR, otherwise known as defendant's inner circle, provided any testimony suggesting that they facilitated defendant in carrying out unlawful sexual conduct. At best, Demetrius Smith admitted to assisting defendant's marriage to Aaliyah, but did not admit to having knowledge of a sexual relationship between the two, and did not admit to facilitating an illegal scheme. The probation department has done nothing more than identify individuals who worked for the defendant. Paragraph 17 to 18. Defendant objects to the assertion that anyone in defendant's inner circle escorted minors to rooms within defendant's residence or studio to the extent it suggests that any employees of defendant had knowledge of his visitors' ages. Defendant objects to the claim that defendant's employees handed out defendant's phone numbers to minors. No testimony established that any employees recruited minors for the defendant. Defendant further objects to the claim that defendant's employee selected minors to join defendant backstage for after parties. R. Kelly is like, none of this happened. Y'all killing me with this shit. He's like, I object. None of my employees selected any minors. Okay, they weren't employees. They were your entourage. Security. What, weren't they security? Weren't they part of your entourage? Weren't they members of your team? Handing out stuff in concerts? Huh? I'm confused. None of this happened. So how did they get your number? How did these minors get your phone number, Mr. Kelly? I want to know. Did you give it to them? Was your phone number published in the yellow pages or something? The white pages? Something? Were they all contacting you, looking for you? Huh? This is funny. This is funny. Okay, I find it funny. Whatever. There is simply no evidence that anyone recruited minors specifically to attend any after parties. While it is true that individuals who attended defendant's concert were sometimes invited backstage to meet the defendant, after parties or backstage gatherings are simply a routine aspect of the music industry. Defendant objects to probation's continued use of the word inner circle. Okay, your camp. We're not going to say inner circle. Your camp. Your camp. Okay, your camp. Your enterprise. Your entourage. We won't say inner circle, okay, Kelly? We won't say inner circle. A term coined by the government that merely describes individuals who worked for the defendant. Wait a minute. How are you saying it merely describes individuals who worked for the defendant, but up here you're saying that they didn't work for the defendant? I'm confused. Okay. Defendant objects to probation's continued use of the word inner circle, a term coined by the government that merely describes individuals who worked for the defendant and cannot be said to have had knowledge about the age of any of the women with whom the defendant had relationships. Okay, so he had no knowledge. He had no knowledge of none of the girls' ages, so he never asked them, how old are you? He never asked for any ID. He never made copies of IDs. He never had any of the girls' birth certificates. I'm confused. What did I read in the transcripts? I don't know. Oof. Paragraph 19. Defendant objects to the characterization of signing non-disclosure agreements as a rule of the enterprise. Use of NDAs are routine for high-profile individuals. Indeed, most celebrities require the signing of NDAs to work for them or even step foot into their orbit. This was not a rule of any enterprise. No, it was R. Kelly's rule. R. Kelly's rule, and it was Daryl McDavid who helped him to get those NDAs put together with his legal team, whoever they were at the time. I think her name was Trayvon, was one of the lawyers, or she was I forgot her name. Kevinati. Damn it to hell. He had quite a few lawyers working for him. So, this was not a rule of any enterprise. Defendant further objects to the contention that defendant's rules of his business and home were rules of the enterprise. Yes, they were rules of the enterprise because they went with him everywhere he went. Defendant's general rule that prohibited guests from wandering his home unattended was simply a rule of his business and home. Good fight, Joe. Good fight, Joe. That's a good fight, Joe. Good fight. Paragraph 20. Defendant objects to the report's suggestion that wage disputes between the defendant and his employees was a feature of the so-called enterprise. Defendant docked the pay of his employees from time to time for various reasons. Isn't that illegal? You should not be able to dock anyone's pay unless they stole from you. Then you can dock their pay. But just because they didn't do what they were asked or told to do, that doesn't mean you should dock their pay unless they stole from your company. So what he did was illegal. So now Bone Jean is admitting that he illegally docked money from his employees from time to time for various reasons. Those employees objected. What did they object to? This reflected typical employment disputes, unrelated to any charged conduct. Wait, what? Those employees objected. This reflected typical employment disputes, unrelated to any charged conduct. Okay, that was just an example of him controlling the enterprise, holding out their money and being a dick. Like, that's all that was. That had nothing to do with proving an enterprise. That just had to do with proving how he controlled his enterprise money. Then it says defendant objects to the assertion that he required his employees to write letters falsely confessing to bad conduct. No such evidence established that defendant required his employees to write such letters so he could use them for his protection. Oh, good luck with that one, Bojo. Good luck with that one. Paragraph 22. Defendant objects to the assertion that member of the enterprise aided and abetted and conspired to commit certain crimes. There is no evidence that any of the defendant's employees knowingly aided and abetted sexual activity with minors. What? So by them just giving out his phone number and taking the girls to the hotel rooms, grabbing them from airports and dropping them off at the hotel rooms is not knowing about their sexual activity? Really? I'm confused. Sexual activity without disclosing a sexually transmitted disease, child pornography, extortion, coercion, or blackmail. Well, every time he sent one of his enterprise members to go and pick up his pharmacy prescriptions, it would be herpes medicine. The bus driver knew about that because he looked at the medicine and according to him, he looked it up and found out it was a herpes medication. So he knew R. Kelly had herpes because he had to be one of those guys that picked it up from the fucking, god darn it, from the place, from the pharmacy. Are you kidding me? Paragraph 28. Defendant had no role in the title of Aaliyah's first album, Age Ain't Nothing But a Number, as suggested by the government. Wait a minute. What? R. Kelly, why you lie? Why you lying? Why you lying? Okay, guys. Who produced this? Who named the title of the album? Who created the album? Please tell me. Over a donut. Good point, Flawless. That's another thing. Over a donut. How about docking somebody's pay because he couldn't get a girl to show them around Disney World or some shit like that? It was. Remember that, guys? Right? What? Oh, snap. All right, I'm just seeing what you guys are saying. Okay. Right. Like, what the hell? I'm confused. Then he says, Aaliyah herself has publicly explained many times that the title of her album sprung from a desire to be taken seriously in the music industry and that it was a decision ultimately made by her managers and the record label. Okay, R. Kelly, you titled it Age Ain't Nothing But a Number. And in that song, nowhere does it suggest anything about the goddamn industry. What? Nowhere in that song it talks about her aspiring to be a singer and living her dreams and being taken serious by the industry. Everybody looked at that song like, oh my God, is she a little girl who likes older men? Oh my God. People were like, holy cow. Then all of a sudden, the whole R. Kelly scandal came about. She's married. You what? I wish to God that Barry Hankerson never approved that dumb ass album. Okay? Because that was dumb, Barry. Real dumb. The conduct against Jane Doe 1. Paragraph 29. Defendant objects to the unsupported assertion that defendant began sexually abusing Aaliyah in 1992 or 1993. Apart from the isolated incident that Jane Doe 7 claims to have witnessed between defendant and Aaliyah, the record is devoid of evidence of ongoing sexual abuse. Count 1, racketeering. Act 1, bribery. Paragraph 32 to 33. Defendant objects to the assertion that Smith told defendant that he could obtain a fake identification card for Leah by bribing an employee at the public aid office. So now R. Kelly's saying that Demetrius Smith never told him that he couldn't obtain a fake ID for Aaliyah by bribing the employee at the public aid office. Smith testified that he did not recall discussing this with the defendant. Paragraph 53 to 55. Defendant objects to the alleged Ruggiero conduct. Okay, whatever that is. The jury rejected Sonia's testimony. The record does not suggest that the jury would have credited Sonia's testimony under a preponderance of evidence standard. Offense level computation. Count 1, racketeering, bribery. Paragraph 129. Defendant objects to the enhancement for role in the offense. Where there is no evidence defendant attempted to use a person less than 18 years of age to commit the offense of bribery. Huh? What does that have to do with the age? Defendant objects to the enhancement for role in the offense. Where there is no evidence defendant attempted to use a person less than 18 years of age to commit the offense of bribery. The record is devoid of evidence that Aaliyah had knowledge that a bribery occurred or that she played any role in the bribery, even if the bribery involved obtaining an identification card for her. Obviously, she had to know, right? That's the only way she was going to be able to get married. She had to know. Paragraph 130. The government's evidence failed to show that defendant was even aware that a bribe had taken place, let alone that he was the organizer or leader of the bribe. Even if defendant was the beneficiary of the bribe, the government did not establish he was the leader of this specific criminal activity. Count 1, racketeering, Act 2. Sexual exploitation of child, Jane Doe 2. Paragraph 134. Defendant objects to the 2-point enhancement where the commission of a sexual act is duplicative to the underlying offense of sexual exploitation of a child. Paragraph 136. Defendant objects to the 4-point enhancement of the basis that the evidence does not reveal that defendant was the organizer or leader of criminal activity that involved 5 or more participants in connection with Racketeering Act 2. She's saying there has to be more than 5 defendants who organized this, who participated in this, in connection with this racketeering of sexual exploitation. What? Did I just read that right? Am I bugging out? Hold on one second. Give me a moment, guys. All right, I'm back, guys. Sorry about that. Got some activity going on at 1 a.m. in my house. All right, so let's continue reading this because this is quite a few pages. All right. All right. So, Count 1, Racketeering Act 2, Sexual Exploitation of Child Jane Doe 2. All right, we read that. All right, now they're talking about this Ruggiero conduct, which is Count Racketeering Act 3, Kidnapping Jane Doe 3. Paragraph 139. Defendant objects to the consideration of so-called Ruggiero conduct. Although the government contends that it can prove the allegations involving Jane Doe 3, Sonia, by a preponderance of the evidence was presented to the jury and was rejected by the jury, presumably because the jury did not credit Sonia's testimony. There is nothing in this record that suggests that Sonia's testimony should be credited under the lower standard of proof. Paragraph 143. Defendant objects to the 4-point enhancement on the basis that the evidence does not reveal that defendant was the organizer or leader of criminal activity that involved 5 or more participants in connection with Racketeering Act 3. Ruggiero conduct again, Count Racketeering Act 4, Mann Act, Jane Doe 3. Paragraph 146, defendant objects to the consideration of so-called Ruggiero conduct. Although the government contends that it can prove the allegations involving Jane Doe 3, which is Sonia, the evidence was presented to the jury and was rejected by the jury, presumably because the jury did not credit Sonia's testimony. There is nothing in this record that suggests that Sonia's testimony should be credited under the lower standard of proof. Defendant objects to the 4-point enhancement on the basis that the evidence does not reveal that defendant was the organizer or leader of criminal activity that involved 5 or more participants in connection with Racketeering Act 3. Count 1, Racketeering Act 5, Mann Act, Jane Doe 4. Paragraph 154, defendant objects to an enhancement for unduly influencing a minor to engage in prohibited sexual conduct, as this conduct is duplicative to the elements of Racketeering Act 5 as charged. Paragraph 155, defendant objects to an enhancement for use of a computer or cell phone to induce the travel of a minor to engage in prohibited sexual conduct. There is no evidence that Jane Doe 4, Geronda, traveled anywhere. At best, she took the train to defendant's home and was given a ride from the train station. Furthermore, there is no evidence that defendant enticed or induced Jane Doe 4 to come to his house to engage in sexual conduct. The government, just because she took the train? Oh, Lord. The government offered no text communications between defendant and Jane Doe 4, and she did not testify to any specific communications from the defendant that reflect persuasion, inducement, or coercion. Defendant objects to an enhancement based on the commission of a sex act where the sex act is already taken into account in the Mann Act violation itself. The enhancement is duplicative. Babe, can you take that out for me? Defendant objects to the 4-point enhancement on the basis that the evidence does not reveal that defendant was the organizer or leader of criminal activity that involved 5 or more. Thank you, sweetheart.
That shit's hard.
Oh, thank you. I don't care. I'm eating a tortilla wrap that I left it in a little bit too long in the oven, so it's a little crunchy. Whatever. So defendant objects to the 4-point enhancement on the basis that the evidence does not reveal that defendant was the organizer or leader of criminal activity that involved 5 or more participants in connection with Racketeering Act 5. Count 1, Racketeering Act 6, forced labor. Jane Doe 4. Defendant objects to probation's contention that another felony offense was committed during the commission of Racketeering Act 6, specifically exploitation of a child pursuant to 225A. Paragraph 164, defendant objects to the 4-point enhancement on the basis that the evidence does not reveal that defendant was the organizer or leader of criminal activity that involved 5 or more participants in connection with Racketeering Act 6. Count 1, Racketeering Act 7, sexual exploitation of a child, Jane Doe number 4. Defendant objects to the 4-point enhancement on the basis that the offense involved the commission of a sexual act by use of physical force. There is no evidence that physical force was used in connection with this Racketeering Act. This Racketeering Act involves the claim that defendant video recorded Jane Doe 4, Geronda, during sexual acts. The record is devoid of any suggestion that any recording of sex acts with Geronda involved use of physical force. Ay, ay, ay. The defendant objects to an enhancement for use of computer or cell phone to induce the travel of a minor to engage in prohibited sexual conduct. There is no evidence that Jane Doe 4, Geronda, traveled anywhere. At best, she took the train to defendant's home and was given a ride from the train station. Furthermore, there is no evidence that the defendant enticed Jane Doe 4 to come to his house to engage in sexual conduct. The government offered no text communications between defendant and Jane Doe 4, and she did not testify to any specific communications from the defendant that reflect persuasion, inducement, or coercion. Defendant objects to the 4-point enhancement on the basis that the evidence does not reveal that defendant was the organizer or leader of criminal activity that involved 5 or more participants in connection with Racketeering Act 7. Count 1, Racketeering Act 8, Mann Act, Jane Doe 5, paragraph 175. Defendant objects to any enhancement on the basis that defendant unduly influenced the minor to engage in prohibited sexual conduct. As the government conceded, Jane Doe 5, Jane, falsely told defendant she was 18 years of age. Furthermore, with the facilitation of her mother, Jane induced defendant into sexual relationship, not the other way around. Furthermore, this enhancement, and she put that GX233, guys, she put in the text messages in there. Furthermore, this enhancement is unjustified where undue influence is an element of Racketeering Act 8B, namely a Mann Act violation based on coercion or enticement. The enhancement is duplicative to punishment incorporated into the base offense level. Thank you, baby. Paragraph 176. Defendant objects to an enhancement for use of a computer or cell phone to induce the travel of a minor to engage in prohibited sexual conduct. There is no evidence that the defendant induced or persuaded Jane to travel to California, and there is no evidence that there was a computer or cell phone used to induce the travel. Jane was living with the defendant in Illinois, where the age of consent was 17. Jane was 17 years of age. Jane traveled with defendant because they were in a relationship, not because defendant had to induce her to travel to engage in prohibited sex activities. Wow. What y'all think about that one? I miss you too, my love. Well. Paragraph 176. Defendant objects to the contention that he used a cell phone to persuade, entice, coerce, or facilitate the travel of a minor. As discussed supra, and as conceded by the government, defendant had no knowledge that Jane was a minor at the time of this underlying offense, where Jane lied to defendant about her age. Furthermore, the text exchange showed that it was Jane and her mother that were doing the inducing, not the other way around. Oh, man. Defendant objects to any enhancement for an offense involving the commission of a sex act or sexual contact where such conduct is duplicative to the charged offense and already contemplated by the base level offense. Defendant objects to the 4-point enhancement on the basis that the evidence does not reveal that the defendant was the organizer or leader of criminal activity that involved 5 or more participants in connection with racketeering 8. So, thank you, baby. Babe, you got something to drink there? I'm eating a midnight snack, y'all. Okay. Oh, thank you. Count 1, Racketeering Act 10. Sexual exploitation of a child. Jane Doe 5. Paragraph 183. Defendant objects to the 2-point enhancement where the commission of a sexual act is duplicative to the underlying offense of sexual exploitation of a child. Defendant objects to the 4-point enhancement on the basis that the offense involved material that portray sadistic or masochistic conduct or other depictions of violence. The government did not offer any videos into evidence that portrayed Jane's sex acts with the defendant in California. There is no evidence whatsoever that the videos allegedly created in California during the relevant time period involved in sadistic or masochistic conduct or any depictions of violence, including alleged chastisements. Okay, Bojo. Okay. I see where you're going, girl. Mm-hmm. You know, I know that the mother was coaching her to perform. I get that. I definitely get that. I get that. I see it. I get it. But all that other extra shit she was saying, why would she say that to her daughter? I don't know. Why would you say that to your daughter? That's what bothers me. I don't care about, you know, you got to shimmy to perform and look cute and smile and turn around. And when you're talking about him being your baby daddy and laugh out loud and he's trying to fuck and all this other shit, that's weird. Why would you do that? That's weird. I wouldn't do that to my daughter. Are you crazy? Uh-uh. Uh-uh. Mm-mm. Now, defendant objects to an enhancement for use of computer or cell. Okay, wait. I just read that. Oh, no, wait. Oh, okay, right. We're chastisement. Okay. Then paragraph 185, defendant objects to enhancement for use of a computer or cell phone to induce the travel of a minor to engage in prohibited sexual conduct. There is no evidence that defendant induced or persuaded Jane to travel to California. And there is no evidence that there was a computer or cell phone used to induce the travel or to create sexually exploitive videos. Jane was living with the defendant in Illinois, where the age of consent was 17, and Jane was 17 years of age. She traveled with the defendant because the defendant was performing in California. Any sex acts or recordings of sex acts were incident to the travel. Oh, wow. Defendant objects to the 4-point enhancement on the basis that the evidence does not reveal that defendant was the organizer or leader of criminal activities that involved 5 or more participants in connection with racketeering activity. Lord, have mercy. So, count 1, Racketeering Act 11, forced labor. For Jane Doe 5, paragraph 191. Defendant objects to an enhancement that alleges that the defendant committed the offense of sexual exploitation of a child in connection with the forced labor count. Now, the government alleged that the defendant was guilty of forced labor because defendant forced Jane to participate in sex acts with men and other women. There is simply no evidence that those acts took place when Jane was under the age of 18. Defendant cannot be found to have committed sexual exploitation of a child when he allegedly forced Jane to participate in sex acts with third parties if she was not under the age of 18. Oh, boy.
How come everyone's eating but me?
I don't know. You didn't come over here for something to eat?
Everyone's getting some snacks, filling their bellies out. I'm just looking at snacks.
So hook yourself up a sandwich. Everybody hooked up their own stuff. Now, defendant further objects to an enhancement on the basis that the offense involved material that portray sadistic or masochistic conduct or other depictions of violence. The government did not offer any videos into evidence that portrayed Jane's sex acts with third parties that show any chastisement or beatings or spankings. And Jane's testimony regarding her alleged sexual acts with third parties, the basis for the forced labor count, did not include acts of violence. Defendant also objects to an enhancement for use of a computer or cell phone to induce the travel of a minor to engage in sexually explicit conduct. There is no evidence that defendant induced or persuaded Jane to travel to anywhere to participate in these group sex acts. The record suggests that these activities actually took place where defendant and Jane lived together. Oh, boy. 1993. Paragraph 193. Defendant objects to the 4-point enhancement on the basis that The evidence does not reveal that defendant was the organizer or leader of criminal activity that involved 5 or more participants in connection with racketeering. Are you kidding me? Count 1. Racketeering Act 13, forced labor, Jane Doe, number 6. Defendant objects to a 2-point enhancement for brandishing a firearm. Faith's testimony established that defendant did not brandish a firearm. Although she noticed the weapon, she did not allege that defendant brandished it. Indeed, defendant never touched the gun or made any gestures toward using the gun. Faith described the defendant as being serious but not threatening. I can't. Wow. So just the gun by the side is not scary enough. Just having the gun nearby is not scary enough. He has to have it in his hand in order for it to be scary. That's wild. Paragraph 198. Defendant objects to any enhancement on the basis that defendant used force in connection with this act of oral sex. Faith did not testify that she objected to the act of oral sex. The record fails to reflect that force or threats of force were used in connection with this sex act. Even Faith admitted that her sexual relationship with the defendant was voluntary, if unpleasant. Oh, man. Paragraph 200. Defendant objects to the 4-point enhancement on the basis that the evidence does not reveal that defendant was the organizer or leader of criminal activity that involved 5 or more participants in connection with the Racketeering Act 13. Count 1, Racketeering Act 9, and counts 2, 3, 4, and 5, Mann Acts, Jane Doe 5. Defendant objects to the base offense level of 32, where the predicate sexual act of this Mann Act violation was not sexual exploitation of a child, but rather intentional exposure to an STD. Although the government did also charge an alternative theory that defendant transported Jane to California with the intent to violate California state law prohibiting sexual intercourse with the person under the age of 18. The verdict form did not specify that if found that defendant was guilty under this theory. Paragraph 204. Defendant objects to an enhancement based on the commission of a sexual act, where the sex act is duplicative of the sexual conduct contemplated by sexual exploitation of a child, and the base offense level. Paragraph 205. Defendant also objects to an enhancement for use of a computer or cell phone to induce the travel of a minor to engage in sexually explicit conduct. There is no evidence that defendant induced or persuaded Jane to travel to anywhere to participate in sex acts or sex acts that were recorded. And no evidence demonstrates that defendant used computers or cell phones for this purpose. Defendant and Jane lived together in Chicago at this time period. They traveled together because they were in a relationship with one another. Defendant objects to the 4-point enhancement on the basis that the evidence does not reveal that defendant was the organizer or the leader of criminal activity that involved 5 or more participants in connection with the racketeering acts. Oh, brother. So now I wonder what's going to happen after this. So now the government will probably respond, right? Or Judge Donnelly will. I'm not sure. Now, count 1, Racketeering Act 12, and counts 6 and 7. Mann Act for Jane Doe 6. Defendant objects to the base offense level of 18, where the record does not show that defendant used coercion against Faith to travel to New York for the purpose of exposing her to STD. The record shows unequivocally that defendant asked Faith to travel to New York. She accepted. Faith herself does not contend otherwise. No coercion was used in connection with this trip whatsoever. Defendant objects to the 4-point enhancement on the basis that the evidence does not reveal that defendant was the organizer or leader of criminal activity with the that involved 5 or more participants in connection with the Racketeering Act 12. Counts 1, Racketeering Act 14, and counts 8 and 9, Mann Act, Jane Doe 6. Defendant objects to the base offense level of 18, where the record does not show that defendant used coercion against Faith to travel to New York or to engage in any sex acts with Faith while in New York. Faith testified to the opposite. Defendant objects to the 4-point enhancement on the basis that the evidence does not reveal that defendant was the organizer or leader of criminal activity that involved 5 or more participants in connection with Racketeering Act 12. Paragraph 219 to 25, for the reasons identified, defendant objects to the total offense level of 43. So they were giving him the offense level of 43. So with this level 43, this number here will determine on the guidelines, level 43 guidelines for sentencing. So let me see something. Let me see if I can find out how many years that could be. Hold up. Okay. Um, All right, let's see what this says here. I think this might be it here. Uh, I'm going through this paperwork real quick, guys. Hold on. Okay, this sounds really confusing. Let me go back to the paperwork real quick. Let me take this. Hold on one second, guys. I'm just trying to figure this out. All right, let's see. Okay, let's see what this is. Okay. Determining the sentence. All right. For certain categories of offenses and offenders, the guidelines permit the court to impose either imprisonment or some other sanction or combination of sanctions. Okay, in determining the type of sentence to impose, the sentencing judge should consider the nature and seriousness of the conduct, the statutory purposes of sentencing, and the pertinent offender characteristics. So a sentence is within the guidelines if it complies with each applicable section of this chapter. The court should impose a sentence sufficient but not greater than necessary to comply with the statutory purposes of sentencing under 18 U.S.C. 3553A. Okay. Okay. Oh, shit. Oh, snap, guys. Hold up. Check this out. You see my screen, guys? So, his number's 43, right? So this is the sentencing table. I don't know if y'all can see that. I'm just gonna blow it up a little bit. All right, let's see. Okay. All right, so this is the sentencing table. So, Bonjean rejects to the offense level of 43, right? So here on the left side, it'll say Zone A, Zone B, right? Up here, it says criminal history category, criminal history points. 0 to 1, 2 or 3, 4, 5, and 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 or more. Now, R. Kelly's level is number 43, right? And what does that level pertain to? Life. Life. They're trying to give R. Kelly life in prison. Life in prison, guys. Babe, bust me down. What? Say it again? Oh. So they're trying to give R. Kelly life for sure. His level 43 will give him life. Wow. Mm. Okay. All right. So, for the reasons identified, defendant objects to the total offense level of 43. So he objects to life imprisonment, which is, I mean, shit. I don't blame him. I mean, I wouldn't want life either, but if that's what they want to give you, that's what it pertains to, the level of offenses. Now, Part B, the defendant's criminal history. Defendant objects to probation's reliance on this alleged 1996 arrest for a misdemeanor battery based on internet tabloid reports. No official records exist of defendant's arrest or the disposition of the alleged arrest. The mere presence of the arrest on a criminal history report and internet tabloid reports does not offer sufficient reliability that the offense occurred and that defendant was convicted and or sentenced to a year of probation after allegedly pleading no contest to simple battery. Defendant objects on the basis that pending charges and any offenses which defendant was acquitted are irrelevant to his sentencing in this case and impinge on the presumption of innocence. Part C, offender's characteristics. Defendant objects to the extent that probation seeks to paint Joycelyn Savage as a victim. Savage is engaged in a consensual relationship with defendant and is engaged to him. Oh, God. Kill me now, it's true. Kill me now, it's true. He really is engaged to Joycelyn. Well, I don't know. I can't tell with this guy. Oh, God, Papa Savage. I'm so sorry. Oh, God, Tim. Tim and Jonjolin, I'm hugging you right now. Oh, God. Yeah. Defendant objects to the extent that probation seeks to paint Joycelyn Savage as a victim. Savage is engaged in a consensual relationship with defendant and is engaged to him. Defendant has been incarcerated for over 2 years, belying the suggestion that he has forced or induced her into a sexually abusive relationship that exists today. Part D. Sentencing options. Defendant objects to the total offense level of 43 and criminal history category of 1 for the reasons identified above. Category 1. Oh man, and I just closed that shit. Hold on. So he's at level 1. He's at criminal history category 1. And that would be no matter what, 143 is life. He gets life. I mean, if they tried to reduce it, I mean, he can, even if they reduced it to like level 28, I mean, if they reduced it to level 28, he would get 78 to 97 years in prison. I mean, if he gets down to a level of 14, he would get 15 to 21 years. Okay, so in rare cases, a total offense level of less than 1 or more than 43 may result from application of the guidelines. A total offense level of less than 1 is to be treated as an offense level 1. An offense level of more than 43 is to be treated as an offense of level 43. Okay. Let's see. What's this one? Ooh, wow. Okay, this is a lot. I think I'm gonna read this. I'm gonna read this thing another day. We're gonna definitely do that. Defendant objects to the total offense level of 43 and criminal history category of 1 for the reasons identified above. And paragraph 305 says that defendant objects on the basis that no enterprise existed and he did not profit from any racketeering activities associated with the non-existent enterprise. Respectfully submitted, Jennifer Bonjean of the Bonjean Law Group, dated April 20th, 2022. Well, all righty there, guys. That was that. That was that. Exactly, Tears. Exactly. And she's so stuck and blind by him right now. She's wanted to be the number one girl for a while. She never got the opportunity. Now she has the opportunity. She's taking it. Mm-mm-mm. Mm-mm-mm. He is done, engaged and all. Joy, you still got time, mama. Facts. She still got time to leave him. She could up and leave him and be quiet and never tell her story. You know? She might just not betray her loyalty to him. Who knows? You know what I'm saying? She just might not betray his loyalty. You know? He's only got 30 years left on him, maybe. Stick a fork in him, he's done. Exactly, Wings. One thing for sure, two things for certain. Robin, R. Smelly ain't getting out. Okay? Poor Joy, why marry a life sentence prisoner? For real. The government about to pull a Willie on his ass for this watch. Now she should just take whatever bag she can get. She been through it with him. It's not like he's going to get the chance to beat her again, being licked up forever. She was never going to turn on him. If she was, she would have been gone. She actually was going to turn on him. She was. She was going to turn on him, but she decided to change her mind. Once that whole debacle happened with her and Azriel, she decided, fuck that shit. I'm going to stay here. Why you being so mean?
Mom,
She's under his spell, Robin. Come on.
how long do I cook this to make this the perfect cooked tortilla?
You got to stay there and watch it, puppy. Get like 5 minutes.
Because I want it to be like a taco soft shell.
Okay, so you got to make it like 5 minutes. No more than 5
In
minutes.
the oven?
In the oven.
For how long? For what?
At least 3 minutes. 2 minutes.
For what
2
heat?
minutes.
What heat?
Oh my God. Give me 1 second, guys. Will she ever be able to touch him in prison? Ha! She will never be able because they don't give conjugal visits. Diva 100, she could move on and live a full life with or without telling her truth. Exactly. I mean, she could just go on, girl, go on and never look back. She might just be working for the government. They will never show their hands. This is chess, not checkers, remember. She could always do that too, Robin, and be attacked by you guys. Why would she? Right. That's true. You guys make it hard for these women to come out and tell their truth. Yeah, I mean, they're constantly being bashed and attacked. It's sad. You all make them targets. Exactly. Good point. I don't think any of them was under his spell because they should have and could have gone home. They wanted to be their money talks. I mean, come on, Robin, let's be real. What if you were in that situation, girl? You with R. Kelly. You not going to be happy with the benefits you get? You're going to be upset with the beatings and the mistreatment. But at the end of the day, he's going to say, but look, I bought you this fur coat. But look, I gave you this car. I'm sorry I gave you a black eye, but I still sent you to fucking Hawaii. Come on. And if you're dependent on this man, like any other woman would be in a domestic violent situation, she's going to stick with him until she can't no more. They leave and go back. They leave and go back. It happens. It happens in normal relationships. It doesn't have to be a domestic violence situation. Women leave and go back. Same thing with men. They leave and go back. There's always something that brings you back. Come on. Let's be real, yo. That would be something. Robin, look at what Az going through. You can tell by the Gayle King interview, Joy ain't about that life. She is more scared than anything else. I believe that. What money? Thought he doesn't have money. Right. Once upon a time, he had money. Right. He's still got money. He got accounts in other people's names. That's the only way he can have money, man. Why is Az going around spreading herpes? But it's okay if you does it, huh? Wait, what? Why is Az going around spreading herpes? Do you know that she's going around spreading herpes? Do you know that she's fucking a bunch of guys? Like, do you hang out with her? Do you know her? Do you know exactly what she's doing? I mean, are you there? Do you talk to her? Let me know. Robin, your king gave it to her. Ask him why he's spreading it. Good question, Lakendra. Good question. Robin, so you admit he gave her herpes. Oh, good one, Wings. Good one. Well, guys. Well, they say she supposedly have it, right? Yeah, and so does R. Kelly. He supposedly has it too, right? Why do you think R. Kelly made Trapped in the Closet? Because he had the package and he had to talk about it because he was spreading it like wildfire. And he had to make it look good for himself. Don't you know that everything that R. Kelly does is to protect himself? He don't give a fuck about nobody else but himself. She got it from him. So, guys, let's see what happens now. We're going to wait, I gather, for the government to respond, whether it be the judge or the prosecution. Let's see what happens, y'all. I'll just be on the pacer watch. You already know. Anything that comes through, if it's something, I'll put it on my wall. If it's a big thing, I'll come live and we'll talk about it. So, guys, while you're here, please do me the favor. Don't forget to hit that like button, okay, guys? Thank you very much. There's like 35 of y'all. I should have like 30 likes at least. Thank you. And for those of you who are on the replay, please leave your comments below in the comment section of the video. If you're not subscribed to my channel, please subscribe. Thank you very much. Guys, if you would like to be a member of my members only, it's $1.99. I do exclusives and all types of little things over there. I'm not too active, but I am a little active in it. I'm trying to grow my members so I can be a little bit more active on that side. So, guys, you can always check that out. And your girl, Diva Divine Light, is out. Peace.